The year was 2347, and Commander Daniel Harris stood on the bridge of the starship Valiant. He looked out at the endless darkness of space through the massive viewing window. Stars twinkled like distant diamonds against the black canvas of the universe. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, each one focused on their tasks. Lieutenant Commander Amy Sullivan sat at the communications console. Her fingers moved quickly across the glowing controls. She had been monitoring alien signals for 3 days now, and the tension on the ship was growing with each passing hour. "Commander," Amy said, her voice calm but serious. "The signal is getting stronger. We are very close now." Daniel nodded slowly. He had been expecting this moment for years. Everyone on Earth had been expecting it. The question was never if humanity would meet aliens. The question was always when. 3 days earlier, a strange transmission had reached Earth from beyond the edge of the solar system. The message was short and simple. It asked for a meeting. It asked for diplomatic contact. The leaders of Earth, known as the Terran Council, had sent the Valiant to investigate. The Valiant was humanity's finest ship. It was fast, powerful, and equipped with weapons that most humans did not even know existed. Daniel had commanded this vessel for 5 years, and he trusted every person on board with his life. "Dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds, announced the pilot, a young man named Lucas Perry. His hands gripped the controls tightly. The ship shuddered as it slowed down. The stars outside the window stopped streaking and became still points of light once again. And then Daniel saw it. A massive warship hung in the darkness before them. It was enormous, almost 10 kilometers long. The Valiant was like a tiny fish swimming next to a giant whale. The alien ship was covered in sharp angles and dark metal. Strange symbols glowed along its surface in a language no human could read. "By all the stars," whispered Amy, "it is huge." Daniel kept his face calm, but his heart was beating fast. He had trained for this. He had prepared for this. But nothing could truly prepare a person for seeing something so alien, so impossibly large. "We are being scanned," reported the science officer, a woman named Carol Jensen. "They are looking at every part of our ship." "Let them look," Daniel said. "We have nothing to hide." A moment later, the main screen flickered to life. An image appeared, and Daniel found himself looking at a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was tall, perhaps 7 feet, with scales covering its entire body. The scales were black and shiny, like polished stone. Its eyes were yellow with thin vertical pupils, like a snake. When it spoke, its voice was deep and cold. "I am Ambassador Vorath of the Zelthari Dominion," the creature said. "You are the species known as humans, from the planet called Earth." It was not a question. It was a statement. Daniel stepped forward. "I am Commander Daniel Harris of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your transmission and came to meet you." Vorath's thin lips curled into something that might have been a smile. "Good. Then let us not waste time with small talk. The Zelthari Dominion has watched your species for many centuries. We have studied your history, your wars, your technology. We know everything about you." Daniel said nothing. He waited. "Your solar system now falls under the control of the Zelthari Dominion," Vorath continued. "This is how it works for all young species. You will be integrated into our empire. Your people will serve us. Your resources will belong to us. This is the natural order of things." Amy turned to look at Daniel, her eyes wide with shock. The other crew members shifted nervously at their stations. The alien was not offering friendship or trade. It was demanding complete surrender. "And if we refuse?" Daniel asked, his voice steady. Vorath laughed. It was a cold, unpleasant sound. "You cannot refuse. The Dominion has conquered thousands of worlds. We have destroyed species far more advanced than yours. You have no choice in this matter. Submit or be destroyed." Daniel took a deep breath. He thought about Earth. He thought about the billions of people living their lives, raising their children, dreaming their dreams. He thought about the ancient ruins that had been discovered on Mars 200 years ago. Those ruins had contained a warning from a species that had died long ago. The warning spoke of galactic empires that consumed weaker civilizations like fire consumes dry wood. But the ruins had also contained something else. They contained technology. They contained blueprints for weapons and shields that the ancient species had designed but never had time to build. Humanity had found those blueprints, and humanity had spent 2 centuries building them in secret. Ambassador Vorath, Daniel said slowly, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, but I must respectfully decline your offer. Vorath's yellow eyes narrowed. You misunderstand, human. This is not a request. Daniel smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Neither is this. Stay away from Earth. Do not send your ships to our solar system. Do not contact us again. This is your only warning. For a moment, Vorath seemed confused. No species had ever spoken to the Dominion this way. No species had ever dared to refuse them. Then his confusion turned to anger. You are a fool, Vorath hissed. Your tiny ship and your primitive weapons are nothing against the might of the Dominion. We will crush you like insects. You are welcome to try, Daniel replied calmly. But I promise you, Ambassador, you will regret it. The transmission ended. The screen went dark. Commander, Amy said urgently, their weapons are powering up. Daniel turned to his crew. Every face was looking at him, waiting for orders. They were afraid, but they were ready. They trusted him. All hands to battle stations, Daniel commanded. Raise shields. Power up all weapons. Let us show these aliens what humanity can do. The Valiant came alive. Lights flashed. Alarms sounded. Crew members rushed to their positions. Outside, the massive Zelthari warship began to glow as energy built up in its weapons. The first shot of the war between humanity and the Zelthari Dominion was about to be fired, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Daniel Harris stood firm on his bridge, ready to face whatever came next. Humanity had been given an ultimatum, surrender or die. But humanity had given its own response, stay away from Earth. And that was the only warning they would ever receive. The Zelthari warship fired first. A beam of bright blue energy shot across the darkness of space, heading straight for the Valiant. It was the kind of weapon that had destroyed thousands of ships across thousands of years. No species had ever survived it. But the Valiant was not like other ships. The beam hit the shields and scattered into a million harmless sparks. The Valiant did not even shake. On the bridge, Commander Daniel Harris watched calmly as the enemy weapon failed completely. Shields holding at full power, reported Carol Jensen from her station. Their weapon did not even scratch us. On the Zelthari warship, Fleet Commander Zorath stared at his display screens in disbelief. His weapons officers were shouting at each other, trying to understand what had gone wrong. They fired again and again. Each shot hit the tiny human ship, and each shot did nothing. Impossible, Zorath whispered. This is impossible. Daniel Harris gave his next order in a calm voice. Return fire. Target their weapons and engines. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. The Valiant's weapons came online. They did not look impressive. They did not glow or hum with visible energy. But when they fired, the results were devastating. Beams of pure white light cut through the Zelthari shields like they were not even there. Explosions erupted across the massive warship. Weapons platforms were destroyed in seconds. Engine systems failed one after another. In less than 5 minutes, the pride of the Zelthari Navy was floating dead in space, unable to fight or run. Damage report from the enemy vessel, Amy Sullivan announced. Their weapons are offline. Their engines are offline. They have no way to fight back. Daniel nodded. Open a channel to their ship." The screen flickered, and Zorath's face appeared. The alien commander looked nothing like the confident Ambassador Vorath, who had spoken to them earlier. His yellow eyes were wide with fear. His scales had turned a pale gray color. "This is Commander Harris," Daniel said. "Your ship is disabled. You have two choices. You can surrender, and we will allow you to send a message to your Dominion asking for rescue, or you can continue fighting, and we will finish what we started." Zorath's voice shook when he spoke. "How? How did you do this? Our weapons are the most powerful in the galaxy. Our shields have never failed before." "Your technology is impressive," Daniel admitted. "But you made a mistake. You thought we were weak because we are young. You thought you could simply take what you wanted from us. You were wrong." Zorath lowered his head. "We surrender. Please allow us to contact our fleet." Daniel agreed. He watched as the Zelthari sent a message back to their empire, explaining what had happened. He knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. 2 weeks later, the Valiant returned to Earth. Daniel Harris was welcomed as a hero, but he did not feel like celebrating. He knew what was coming next. The Terran Council met in their great hall beneath the mountains of Switzerland. The room was filled with the most powerful leaders on Earth. At the head of the table sat Councilwoman Maria Vance, the elected leader of all humanity. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Commander Harris," she said, "please give us your report." Daniel stood before the council and told them everything. He described the alien ship, the meeting with Ambassador Vorath, and the battle that followed. When he finished, the room was silent. General Kevin Brooks, the head of Earth's military forces, spoke first. "They will come back. A single defeat will not stop an empire that has conquered thousands of worlds. They will bring everything they have." Maria Vance nodded slowly. "How long do we have?" Kevin pulled up a holographic display showing star maps and calculations. "Based on the information we captured from their ship, their main fleet is located approximately 18 light-years away. At their fastest speed, they could reach us in about 18 months. 18 months. It seemed like such a short time to prepare for the end of the world, but humanity had a secret. 200 years ago, explorers on Mars had discovered ancient ruins buried beneath the red sand. The ruins belonged to a species that had died millions of years before humans even existed. They had left behind a warning about the dangers of the galaxy, about empires that enslaved and destroyed younger species. But they had also left behind something more valuable than any warning. They had left behind blueprints, designs for weapons and shields and engines that were far beyond anything the Zelthari possessed. The ancient species had created these designs but had been destroyed before they could build them. Humanity had built them. For 2 centuries, the greatest minds on Earth had worked in secret. They constructed shipyards in the asteroid belt, hidden from any watching eyes. They built factories on the dark side of the moon. They tested weapons in the empty spaces between planets where no one could see. The Valiant was just the beginning. There were hundreds more ships like it waiting in the darkness, ready to defend Earth. Maria Vance stood up from her chair. "We have 18 months to prepare for the largest battle in human history. We will use every second of that time. Every factory will work around the clock. Every shipyard will produce new vessels. Every soldier will train until they cannot train anymore." She looked around the room at the faces of the other council members. "The Zelthari Dominion thinks we are weak. They think we are prey. They are about to learn the truth about humanity. We do not give up. We do not surrender. And we do not lose." The council members rose to their feet and began to applaud. Daniel Harris watched them, feeling a strange mix of hope and fear. Hope because he believed in his people. Fear because he knew the enemy they were about to face. In the months that followed, Earth transformed, Children watched as massive ships rose into the sky, heading for secret bases in the outer solar system. Workers labored day and night in factories that had once made cars and computers, but now made weapons of war. Scientists pushed the limits of physics, creating new technologies that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. The Zelthari Dominion was coming. They were bringing an army that had never known defeat. They expected to find a weak and frightened species, ready to be conquered. They would find something very different. They would find humanity, ready for war. On the Zelthari homeworld, a planet called Zelthax Prime, the Imperial Senate gathered in their ancient chamber. The room was enormous, with ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. Thousands of Zelthari senators sat in circular rows, their yellow eyes fixed on the figure standing in the center of the floor. Supreme Commander Thalox was the most powerful military leader in the Dominion. He had conquered more worlds than anyone could count. His scales were covered in golden markings that showed his rank and his victories. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the massive chamber like thunder. "Honored senators," Thalox began, "you have all heard the reports from the edge of human space. One of our finest warships was defeated by a single enemy vessel. Fleet Commander Zorath has been captured, and our technology has been studied by these primitive creatures." Angry murmurs spread through the chamber. The Zelthari had ruled their part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never suffered such an insult. "These humans have challenged our power," Thalox continued. "They have refused to submit to the natural order. They have attacked our forces and humiliated our empire. This cannot stand." He raised his clawed hand into the air. "I request authorization for a full extinction fleet. We will travel to their solar system. We will destroy their ships. We will burn their cities, and we will wipe their species from the face of the galaxy." The vote was called. Every senator raised their hand in agreement. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would be destroyed. Over the next 18 months, the Zelthari assembled the largest military force in their history. 12,000 warships gathered at a staging point 3 light years from Earth. Each ship was filled with soldiers eager to prove their worth against the strange species that had dared to defy the Dominion. Supreme Commander Thalox stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. It was the largest ship ever built by the Zelthari, nearly 20 kilometers long. From its command center, Thalox could control the entire fleet with a single thought. "Begin the jump," he ordered. "Today we write the final chapter of human history." The fleet entered faster than light travel, leaving trails of light across the darkness of space. In just a few hours, they would reach Earth. In just a few hours, humanity would face its greatest test. On Earth, the warning came quickly. Deep space sensors detected the approaching fleet while it was still hours away. Alarms sounded across the planet. People looked up at the sky, knowing that something terrible was coming. Councilwoman Maria Vance addressed the world from the Great Hall of the Terran Council. Her image appeared on every screen, in every home, in every corner of the planet. She looked tired but determined. "Citizens of Earth," she began, "the enemy is coming. In a few hours, an alien fleet will arrive at the edge of our solar system. They are coming to destroy us. They are coming to wipe out everything we have ever built, everything we have ever loved, everything we have ever been." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But I want you to know something. We are ready. For 18 months, we have prepared for this day. Our ships are waiting. Our soldiers are trained. Our weapons are powerful beyond anything the enemy has ever faced." Maria leaned forward, her eyes burning with fierce determination. "We are humanity. We have survived ice ages that froze our world. We have survived plagues that killed millions. We have survived wars that almost destroyed us. Every time we have been knocked down, we have gotten back up. Every time we have faced extinction, we have found a way to survive." Her voice rose with passion. The Zelthari think they know what we are. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid. They think they can crush us like they have crushed so many others. But they do not know humanity. They do not know our courage. They do not know our strength. They do not know that when we are pushed to the edge, we push back harder than anyone can imagine. Across the world, people gathered around screens to watch. Families held hands. Strangers embraced. Fear was everywhere, but so was hope. To our soldiers and pilots preparing for battle, Maria continued, know that the entire planet stands behind you. Know that every person on Earth believes in you. Know that whatever happens today, you are heroes. Every single one of you. She straightened her shoulders and spoke her final words. Stay strong, humanity. Stay brave, and show these invaders what happens when they threaten our home. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Christopher Hayes watched the speech on a small screen in his command center. He was aboard the dreadnought Resolute, the flagship of the Terran First Fleet. Around him, officers and crew members worked at their stations, preparing for the battle to come. Christopher was an older man with gray hair and a face lined by years of service. He had joined the Navy as a young man and had worked his way up through the ranks. He had never expected to command humanity in its most important battle. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Patricia Grant, "enemy fleet will arrive in 30 minutes. Christopher nodded. "What are their numbers?" 12,000 warships, sir, including their flagship, which appears to be the largest vessel we have ever encountered. 12,000 against 800. The numbers seemed impossible, but Christopher had seen what human weapons could do. He had trained his crews for this exact situation. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "Form up in defensive positions around Earth. No enemy vessel gets through our lines. No enemy weapon touches our planet." The Terran fleet moved into position. 800 ships spread out in a protective formation, their weapons charged and ready. Behind them, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and fragile. Christopher opened a channel to all his ships. "This is Admiral Hayes. In a few minutes, we will face the greatest battle in human history. The enemy has numbers on their side. They have experience on their side. But we have something more important. We have our homes behind us. We have our families behind us. We have everything we love behind us." He paused, then spoke the words that would be remembered for centuries. "Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. All ships, prepare for combat. And may whatever gods you believe in watch over us all." The stars flickered at the edge of the solar system. The Zelthari fleet had arrived. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The Zelthari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of angry insects. 12,000 warships spread across the darkness of space, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. At the center of the formation, the eternal conquest dominated everything around it. Supreme Commander Thalox stood on its bridge, watching the human fleet on his display screens. He laughed when he saw the numbers. 800 ships, only 800 ships to defend an entire planet. "They are either very brave or very foolish," Thalox said to his officers. "It does not matter which. Signal all vessels to advance. Destroy everything in our path." The Zelthari fleet surged forward. Thousands of engines burned bright as the warships accelerated toward Earth. Energy weapons charged to full power. Missile bays opened, revealing endless rows of deadly projectiles. On the Resolute, Admiral Christopher Hayes watched the approaching enemy with calm eyes. He had expected this. He had prepared for this. "All ships," he commanded, "hold position. Let them come to us. Do not fire until they are within optimal range." The Terran fleet waited. Every pilot, every gunner, every crew member held their breath. The Zelthari ships grew larger on their screens, coming closer and closer with each passing second. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Grant gripped the controls of her fighter. She was the leader of Shadow Squadron, one of the best fighter units in the fleet. Her squadron of 20 pilots waited in the launch bay of the carrier Thunderbolt, ready to fly into battle at a moment's notice. "Remember your training," Patricia said over the radio. "Stay with your wingman. Trust your weapons, and do not stop fighting until every enemy ship is destroyed." The Zelthari fleet reached optimal range. Christopher Hayes gave the order that would change history. All ships, weapons free. The Terran fleet opened fire. What happened next would be remembered across the galaxy for thousands of years. Human weapons tore through the Zelthari fleet like a storm tearing through paper. White beams of energy cut through alien shields and armor as if they did not exist. Missiles that could phase through solid matter exploded inside enemy reactors, destroying ships from within. The first wave of Zelthari warships simply disappeared. One moment they were there, the next they were expanding clouds of debris and fire. The second wave tried to return fire, but their weapons bounced harmlessly off Terran shields. Supreme Commander Thalox stared at his screens in horror. In the first 4 minutes of battle, he had lost nearly 1,000 ships. The humans had not lost a single one. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." But the nightmare was only beginning. Patricia Grant and her squadron launched from the Thunderbolt and dove into the heart of the Zelthari fleet. Her fighter was small and fast, designed to slip through enemy formations and strike at vulnerable targets. Enemy ships tried to track her, but she was too quick, too skilled. "Shadow 2, enemy bomber on your left," she called to her wingman, a young pilot named Derek Collins. "I see him," Derek replied, his weapons locked on, and a moment later the bomber exploded in a ball of flame. Across the battlefield, human fighters danced through the chaos, destroying enemy ships with deadly precision. Larger Terran vessels pushed forward, their weapons creating walls of destruction that nothing could survive. On Earth, people watched the battle through satellites and observation stations. They saw the flashes of light in the distant sky as ships exploded. They held each other and prayed for their defenders. General Kevin Brooks commanded the ground defense platforms from a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Massive cannons pointed at the sky, ready to destroy any enemy ship that got through the fleet. "Keep those platforms ready," Kevin ordered. "If anything breaks through our lines, I want it destroyed before it can reach the atmosphere." But nothing was breaking through. The Terran fleet was winning. It was not even close. By the 6th hour of battle, the Zelthari had lost 8,000 ships. Their magnificent fleet, the largest in the history of their empire, had been reduced to burning wreckage floating in space. The humans had lost fewer than 50 vessels. On the Eternal Conquest, Supreme Commander Thalox faced a terrible choice. He could continue fighting and lose everything, or he could retreat and face the shame of defeat. "Signal all ships," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Fall back. Retreat to the staging point." The surviving Zelthari ships began to turn away from the battle, but Admiral Christopher Hayes was not finished. "All ships pursue," he ordered. "Cut off their escape routes. Capture as many vessels as possible." The Terran fleet chased the fleeing enemy. Faster and more maneuverable than the alien ships, human vessels quickly surrounded the retreating Zelthari. One by one, enemy ships were disabled and captured. Others surrendered without a fight, their crews too frightened to continue. By the time the battle ended, only 2,000 Zelthari ships remained. They were surrounded, trapped, and completely at the mercy of the humans they had come to destroy. Patricia Grant landed her fighter in the bay of the Thunderbolt. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion, but she was smiling. Shadow Squadron had destroyed over 100 enemy vessels without losing a single pilot. Admiral Christopher Hayes opened a channel to the Eternal Conquest. When the screen lit up, he saw Supreme Commander Thalox standing in the ruins of his command center. The alien's golden markings seemed dull now, his yellow eyes filled with defeat. Supreme Commander, Christopher said calmly, your fleet is destroyed. Your ships are surrounded. You have two choices. Surrender now, or we will finish what we started. Thalox's scales had turned pale gray. His voice cracked when he spoke. How? How did you do this? We have conquered thousands of worlds. We have never lost a battle. Christopher leaned forward. You made a mistake, Commander. You thought we were weak because we are young. You thought you could simply take what you wanted from us. But humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not break. And now you will deliver a message to your dominion. He paused, letting his words sink in. Tell them what happened here. Tell them about the fleet they lost. And tell them that if they ever threaten Earth again, we will not stop at defending our home. We will come for them. The battle for Sol was over. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never look at the small blue planet the same way again. 6 months had passed since the battle for Sol. The wreckage of the Zelthari fleet still floated in the outer reaches of the solar system, a silent reminder of what had happened. Salvage crews worked day and night to collect the debris, studying enemy technology and recovering anything useful. On Earth, life was slowly returning to normal. Children went back to school. Businesses reopened. People laughed and celebrated in the streets. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. They had every reason to celebrate. But the work was not finished. Ambassador Daniel Harris stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Horizon as it approached the Zelthari homeworld. Through the viewing window, he could see Zelthax Prime growing larger, a massive planet covered in gray cities and dark oceans. Once, this world had been the heart of an empire that ruled thousands of star systems. Now, it waited in fear for the human who was coming to deliver their fate. Standing beside Daniel was a security team of 12 soldiers, each one armed with weapons that could destroy a building with a single shot. They were not expecting trouble, but they were prepared for it. We are being hailed by the Planetary Defense Network, reported the communications officer, a woman named Sandra Powell. They are asking us to identify ourselves. Daniel nodded. Tell them that Ambassador Daniel Harris of the Terran Federation has arrived to address the Imperial Senate. They are expecting us. The message was sent. A moment later, the defense platforms that surrounded the planet powered down. A path opened through their formations, allowing the Horizon to approach safely. The ship landed in the capital city, in a plaza that had been cleared specifically for this meeting. As Daniel stepped off the landing ramp, he saw thousands of Zelthari watching from the surrounding buildings. Their yellow eyes followed his every move. Some looked angry, some looked afraid. None of them dared to challenge him. A group of Zelthari officials met him at the edge of the plaza. They bowed low, their scales pressed against the ground in a gesture of submission. Ambassador Harris, said the leader of the group, the Imperial Senate awaits you. Please, follow us. Daniel followed them through the massive doors of the Senate building and into the great chamber where the future of the Dominion would be decided. The room was enormous, filled with thousands of senators sitting in circular rows that rose up toward the distant ceiling. At the center of the floor, a single platform waited for him. Daniel walked to the platform and stood before the assembled Senate. The room fell silent. Every eye was fixed on the human who had brought their empire to its knees. Honored senators of the Zelthari Dominion, Daniel began, his voice echoing through the chamber. 6 months ago, your empire sent a fleet to destroy my people. 12,000 warships came to our solar system with one purpose, to wipe humanity from existence. He paused, letting his words sink in. That fleet no longer exists. Your ships were destroyed, your soldiers were captured, your supreme commander was defeated in battle. And now I stand before you, in the heart of your empire, to deliver the terms of your surrender. Angry murmurs spread through the chamber. Some senators rose to their feet, their scales flushing with rage. But none of them spoke. None of them dared to interrupt. "We did not seek this war," Daniel continued. "When your ambassador came to our solar system, we asked only to be left alone. We warned you to stay away from Earth. You chose not to listen. You chose to attack us. And now, you will face the consequences of that choice." He pulled out a data pad and began to read from it. "First, the Zelthari Dominion will release all enslaved species within its borders. Every world that was conquered will be given its freedom. Every people that was forced to serve will be allowed to choose their own destiny." The murmurs grew louder. The Dominion had built its power on the backs of enslaved species. Releasing them would mean losing everything they had built over 10,000 years. Second, the Dominion will dismantle its war fleets. You will be allowed to keep enough ships to defend your own worlds, but you will never again possess the power to threaten other civilizations. Now the senators were shouting. Some were calling Daniel a tyrant. Others were begging for mercy. But Daniel continued without hesitation. Third, Supreme Commander Thalox and all officers who planned or ordered the attack on Earth will stand trial for their crimes. They will answer for every life that was lost in this war. A door at the side of the chamber opened, and Thalox was brought in by Zelthari guards. His golden markings had been removed, his scales were pale and dull, and his hands were bound in chains. He had been stripped of his rank and his honor. He was nothing now but a criminal waiting to face justice. "These terms are not a negotiation," Daniel said, his voice hard as steel. "They are not a suggestion. They are the price you pay for threatening our home. Accept them and your species will survive. Refuse them and Earth will come for you. And this time, we will not stop at your borders." The vote was called. The senators had no choice. Every hand was raised in agreement. The terms were accepted. In the months that followed, the galaxy transformed. Word spread from star system to star system, carried by traders and travelers and refugees from 1,000 worlds. The Zelthari Dominion, the empire that had ruled through fear for 10,000 years, had been broken by a species that no one had ever heard of before. Other empires took notice. Some sent diplomats to Earth hoping to form alliances with the powerful new species. Others quietly adjusted their star maps, marking the solar system with warnings: restricted, do not approach, extremely dangerous. On Earth, Admiral Christopher Hayes retired to a small house on the coast of Maine, where he spent his days fishing and watching the waves. Councilwoman Maria Vance was re-elected unanimously and began working to build a new future for humanity among the stars. Lieutenant Commander Patricia Grant was promoted and given command of her own ship, and Ambassador Daniel Harris accepted a new posting, representative of humanity to the Galactic Assembly, a council of species from across the galaxy. There, he would work to ensure that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. At his first meeting with the Assembly, representatives from 100 different species watched as Daniel took his seat at the great table. Some of them had heard stories about what humanity had done. Others had seen the evidence with their own eyes. One of the representatives, a small creature with feathered wings and bright blue eyes, leaned over to whisper to Daniel. "Your species is remarkable," the creature said. "In all my years, I have never seen anyone defeat the Dominion. How did you do it?" Daniel smiled. It was the same question he had been asked 1,000 times. "We had one advantage that the Dominion did not expect," he replied. "We had everything to lose. Our home, our families, our future. When you fight for everything you love, you find strength you never knew you had." The creature nodded slowly, its eyes filled with respect. "I think the galaxy has much to learn from humanity." Daniel looked around the chamber at all the different species. all the different worlds, all the different stories waiting to be told. And we have much to learn from all of you, he said. But let me be clear about one thing. Earth is our home. It will always be protected, and anyone who threatens it will face the same fate as the Dominion. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes hard and certain. Stay away from Earth. That is the only warning you will ever receive. And in that moment, every being in the chamber understood. Humanity was not a species to be conquered. Humanity was not a species to be feared. Humanity was a species that would fight for what they loved, no matter the cost. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy.